RefundManager streamlines and automates your NextGen line item credit processing. RefundManager is built to be a NextGen add-on. It integrates into your NextGen system. When it's registered, only people with the correct group memberships will be able to see the add-ons. RefundManager goes one step further and allows you to segment those groups down to the individual users. In our demonstration today, we're going to cover how RefundManager works. In our demo environment, we have QuickBooks as the accounting system of choice. However, RefundManager supports about 18 different accounting systems, both through APIs and through files. For the demonstration today, we're going to walk through the Credit Scout, which is the NextGen facing piece of RefundManager. This is where you search for line item credits and then decide what action you're going to take on those credits. Those actions include being able to distribute the money, which keeps the money in-house by moving it between charges and counters or practices, or you can go ahead and refund the money, which sends the money out to the accounting system that eventually cuts a check and sends it back to the patient. And then the last option is being able to task out that line item credit, and often that's used in the case of further research being needed. Maybe it's an account or encounter that's just a complete mess with all kinds of odd adjustments. So after we finish the Credit Scout, we're going to go ahead and jump into the Batch Detective. The Batch Detective is a tool used to find one or more NextGen batches that contain refund transactions. It'll then export them out to the configured accounting system. This automates that process so that the accounting side folks don't have to do the data entry. No longer will they receive printouts or Excel spreadsheets or other reports where they have to key in the vendors and check information. RefundManager can either create a file that'll be imported or talk directly to the accounting system. When we complete our loop today, we're going to import in the check information through RefundManager into NextGen. So I already brought up the screen for the Credit Scout. And the Credit Scout again is going to find our line item credits that are sitting out there in NextGen. The screen is formatted to be similar to various NextGen search screens, especially on the PM side, where you have your criteria up on top and your results in the lower half of the screen. We can search by a number of different parameters. These include last name, first name, or encounter number. The last name and first name is useful, obviously, if you're targeting a specific person. The account or encounter number allows you to put in a stream of numbers when you're working off a report or other feed, and you just want to get those without searching the entire database. More commonly, though, clients work by date range. If they're doing their cleanup, they have a lot of line item credits out there that have been sitting out there. They normally work it in either 60 to 90 day chunks of time, cleaning up those encounters and then moving on to the next block. Once they get done with their cleanup and they're using RefundManager as part of their standard operations, normally clients search a window that's about 60 days back through about 120 or 150 days back. Occasionally they'll go further back to clean up any odd ones, but normally they're keeping about that 90-day window that starts 60 days back. The credit filter helps determine what kind of line item credits you're going to get. What can they be used for? What are they good candidates for? As part of your training, we'll go into these in more detail. But for today's demonstration, we're going to find some that are good distribution candidates, which are line item credits that can be moved around. And we're going to find some that are good candidates for refunds. Additionally, if your user ID is able to access several practices in your NextGen database, you'll be able to see them from RefundManager. If you only have a single practice or your user ID can only access a single practice, that's the only practice you'll see data for in RefundManager. We have some other drop-downs here to be able to limit the search by location or rendering provider. We've seen several CBOs in the past where analysts work a particular location or provider. If you're doing cleanup for a particular payer, you can limit by financial class. And also we have the ability to skip line item credits if there's an appointment coming up. You just specify the number of days you want to look ahead in the appointment schedule. Because obviously it doesn't make sense to cut them a check when they're coming in tomorrow and you'd be able to keep that money in-house and use it on the new encounter. We're going to go ahead and click the Find button and it's going to pull up some results. These are credits that are candidates for distributions. An important thing about distributions is that they only move patient money. Because of all the rules surrounding payer money, we don't tackle that. We leave that to you to do manually if needed, or in best cases, generally avoid it. So we'll see in this case, all of the credits are in the payer credit column, in the patient credit column, not in the payer credit column. Our results here show us guarantors. These are guarantors that have credits attached to them. If we go ahead and expand these guarantors, we can see what's going on below them. I'm going to start with Shirley here, who has a $50 credit. Again, these are distribution candidates, so there's probably a debit somewhere that can be put against, at least some or part of it. So if we click down and expand this out by clicking the plus button on the left-hand side here, we'll see that we have the guarantor, then we have the practice, then we have the owner of the credit. In this case, because it's a distribution, it's only guarantors, but it could be the payers. And then we have the encounter information and then the charge. If we want more data about what's going on here, we have various places we can click. If we click on the encounter number, we'll get the charges, payments, adjustments, and refunds that are part of that encounter. If we want to see a more holistic view, we can go ahead and bring up screens that mimic the account summary and financial summary in NextGen. This enables you to do more research without having to toggle back to NextGen. Let's say, for example, we did our research and we determined, yes, there is a credit somewhere that we need to move around. To take that action, we're going to click the D checkbox for distribution. To see what it's going to do, we can go ahead and see the distribution preview. And in this case, the items on the left are where the money is going to be taken from, and the items on the right is where the money is going. So it's coming from encounter 1212, SIM 99212. We're going to subtract $50 from the $50 patient credit. And in this time, we're going to keep it on the same encounter, but just move it to another SIM. So maybe this was a case where the money was paid for both charges, but the second charge hadn't flowed through yet. Another one we have as an example is Oscar. And if we click on Oscar, we can see, there's a $205 charge, a $500 payment, yielding a $295 credit. And maybe that money was originally intended to pay off some other charges on other encounters. Well, we can take care of that here since it didn't get done. So we can go ahead and pick a distribution for Oscar, and we'll do a preview. And in this case, we'll see we're pulling from encounter 1213. In the first case, we're going to pull $236 of the $295 credit, and we're going to apply it against encounter 1214 and pay off $236. Then we have $59 remaining that we're going to put against encounter 1215. Let's take the hypothetical case where you want to control how the money is going to flow. So you want to pay off encounter 1215 first and do a partial pay on 1214. What you can do to pair up these transactions manually is right mouse and pick distribution matching. On the left side will be your credits, on the right side will be your balances due. In this case there's only one, so I'm going to go ahead and pick 1213, and as mentioned, we're going to go ahead and pay off 1215 first, so we get that whole $67. Now on the lower part of the screen we get that pairing that we were seeing before. Also up above we see the credit has been reduced, and we can now take that credit and apply it as a partial against the 236. Now that we've selected these for distribution, we can tell RefundManager to go ahead and create those transactions in NextGen. It's going to ask us to validate what we're going to do, and we'll say yes, we want to proceed. Those transactions were just created on your behalf in your batch in NextGen. Now let's move on and say we want to do some refunds. So I'm going to pick where any balance is greater than the debit for that particular bucket, and we'll go ahead and do a find. I'm going to start with Jennifer down here, and I'm going to expand it out and see, wow, Jennifer has 3 encounters, all with different credits on them that total up to the $122 credit. We can even expand it down to the individual charges. Because there's several encounters, this may be a good time to look at the account summary. Just like the NextGen account summary, these can be expanded into their detail items. We can sort it either by date or by encounter, depending on if we're looking at it chronologically or grouping it by those encounters. So let's say we did our research again and we're going to go ahead and do the refund. In this case, we pick the R checkbox. I'm going to pick several others that we're going to push out for refunds too. Now again, just like before, we go ahead and process and tell it to go ahead, and it's going to create those refund transactions on your behalf in NextGen. So now we've done some distributions and we've done some refunds. We've done some refunds that are going to the guarantor, and we've done some refunds that are going to the insurance. The magic here is just that it's done work on your behalf in NextGen. If we go over here to our NextGen batch, we can see we have 12 transactions. Let's go ahead and post this up. So I'm going to balance it out. And then post it. Once it's posted, we'll get our normal batch listing report in NextGen, and we can see the different transaction codes that were used. As a quick diversion, we can go ahead and look at one of the distributions first. I'm going to go ahead and pull up Oscar, so that's account number 290. And remember, we had two distributions in there, one for the $67 and one, I believe, for $228. So here are the distributions, and we can see the net is 0. All right, that's because it's a plus and minus of the same amount. If we go ahead and go down into one of these encounters, we can see that encounter notes and transaction notes have been created on our behalf too. So I'm looking at 1213. Here's our transfers. It's saying what batch it was put in, where it came from, where it's going to. And for each of these, because this was the source one and there were two of them going out, it created encounter notes. And it also did the same on encounter 1214 and 1215. So this documentation also happens automatically on your behalf. Let's get back to our refunds. We're going to take a refund and follow it through the rest of the process. I'm going to start with our friend Jennifer that we looked at originally and pull up her chart. We can see here's a refund here, refund payment, and it was put into our batch, and we have these other refunds that were put in there, and as promised, we also had our encounter notes that were created. We're going to get another encounter note when we do the export to the accounting system that's going to capture the address that's in play, because in RefundManager and in NextGen, you can specify override refund addresses. So we want to be able to document that. And when we finish it, these transactions are going to have the check number, check date, and check amount. So let's go back into RefundManager and proceed through the process and go to our batch detective. We're going to find our batches in NextGen that contain one or more refund transactions. In this case, we only have the one that's available. We've probably processed our other ones. So we're going to go ahead and export it out. And it's going to open a connection to QuickBooks and create those demographics and payments in QuickBooks without accounting having to key them in. If this was a file-based system, it would pop up and ask you where to save the file. You'd hand it off to accounting, and then accounting would go ahead and import that file. In QuickBooks, we can go into our check view and see our checks that are waiting out here to be printed. Here's Jennifer's, with the 3 encounters making up the balance. So let's go ahead and enjoy the free time we have on the accounting side now to do other work and just print those checks. We didn't have to do that pesky data entry anymore. We're going to tell the checks printed okay, so now we have our check numbers assigned to them. And to complete this process, we'll go back to RefundManager and tell it to go get those check numbers and bring it into NextGen. So I was able to update those 9 encounters in NextGen with the check numbers. What does that look like? Let's go back here to Practice Management. Now I have not refreshed the screen yet, but if I toggle back and forth, we'll see here's the check number and the check amount. Because the accounting system combined all three of these into one check, it's giving us the total check amount. And as promised, here's our second note that was created when we exported. And this one, as mentioned earlier, is capturing the refund address that was in play. So that's a quick overview of Refund Manager. Refund Manager, again, was designed to streamline and automate your refund process. We allow you the tools to be able to quickly research the credits and decide what you need to do with them, and then take action on them by automatically creating all the underlying transactions to move those credits around. We integrate with 18 different accounting systems, and we're always adding to that list. Some of those are actually banks that will print the checks on your behalf. So there's a lot of different options for getting the checks out, again, through automation without having to do lots of data entry. We hope you enjoyed this demo. If you have any questions, please reach out to us.